Hello everybody, my name's Swicey and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you guys about the top 10 champions I see becoming the very top meta in this next update. So this next update is going to be bringing a new set, and it's absolutely broken. It's insane, and let me get that pulled up for you here real quick. So this is the set. It's called Pinpoint, and what it's going to be doing is it's going to be giving a total, keep in mind this is a total, of 60 accuracy, 32% speed, and then grants the wearer intercept. Depending on how many you have on, will be how many not turns but stacks of intercept you get of each round. So what this does is that every time you get crowd controlled, the intercept will then take that debuff and then it'll get rid of a stack. What makes this so insanely strong is how oppressive Sheep has been for the past couple years in Raid. Intercept will now allow for a lot of the champions that should be insanely strong this meta to skyrocket in value. This set will change everything in Arena, in my opinion, and I'm really excited to see the change. Now, yes, there will still be a lot of the champions that there already are, and a lot of the ones that I'm calling out are ones that are already strong. But then, based on how I have them scaled 1 to 10, is how much I think their value will change with this update coming in, with this gear set coming in. So let's go ahead and get into it. So in my number 10, well, it's more 8 through 10, I have bomb champions, specifically Nishak, Gaius, and Commodus. So I think the one that probably gains the least from this is Commodus, just because we don't really see him that much. Not that many people have him. I mean, 74 reviews, that's basically nothing. But he is a bomber. He's a very, very cool bomber. One of the champions that I really, really want, just because I think he's awesome. I like his design. I like how he works. He's placing weaken and granting an extra turn, and he's attacking all enemies, places 2 bomb debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns, instantly detonates all bombs on enemies with stone skin, or enemy's HP is less than his, and then places a stun on those enemies who had their bombs detonated by this skill. This is an extremely strong skill, but a skill that is absolutely demolished by Sheep. This champion is so incredibly strong on this form. I don't think his first form is much of anything. I don't think there's anything to really call out here. I guess this removes all buffs from all enemies and then places blocked active skills, and then also steals 20% of the turn meter, so that's actually decently strong. And then this one is also decently strong, but it isn't affected by Sheep. So I think much more focusing on his HP side, he's an HP bomber, which is extremely, extremely cool in my opinion, and he's also going to be countering the bombs that may be coming into meta by just reflecting the bombs that are placed back onto him, which is pretty awesome. Again, the only reason he's this low down in this, he's in quote-unquote last place, is that we don't see him that much yet. But I do think he has some extreme value, and there's absolutely nothing saying that he won't be a top pick if you have him. Next up, in my opinion, is going to be Gaius. So Gaius was a fusion a long time ago, and for the past while, he's been just destroyed by Sheep. I mean, really, how are you going to use this guy if you're just getting sheeped? So his A1 is just pretty basic. Attacks one enemy 2 times, grants an extra turn if it kills somebody. His A2 is really what matters. Jester's Remedy. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance, 100% chance when booked, of placing a sleep debuff on each enemy for 1 turn. Also has a 100% chance when booked, chance of placing 2 bomb debuffs on each enemy that detonate after 2 turns. This is on a 3-turn cooldown after booked. And an Explosive Wit attacks one enemy 2 times. The first hit instantly detonates all bomb debuffs on the target. The second hit will ignore all unkillable buffs on the target. And then this Mad Bomber is passive, pretty awesome. When attacked, has a 30% chance of placing a bomb debuff on the attacker that detonates after 2 turns, occurs once per hit. instantly detonates all bomb debuffs on all enemies whenever this champion is killed. So, I mean, he has a lot of really cool stuff in his kit, and I love his design. Decently high attack, has a 25% attack in all areas lead, and overall I think he is going to be fantastic moving into this with the intercept set, well, pinpoint set coming out. But the champion I think that is going to be the most improved from this is going to be Nishak. So Nishak was an older fusion and an absolutely phenomenal champion, both PvP and PvE. But what makes me think he's going to be one of the best coming into this? Well, on him, he's going to be doing... well, here, let me just go through his kit like I did the last one. Pestilent Sensor attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a bomb debuff for 2 turns. Bomb debuffs placed by this skill on enemies whose max HP is equal to or higher 200,000 will deal double damage. So he's really good against bosses, but he's also just amazing in PvP. And then his A2, Vermin Lord's Command, on a 3-turn cooldown once fully booked, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of placing decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. This is, of course, when it is fully booked, 100% chance. Also has a 75% chance of decreasing the detonation countdown of all bomb debuffs by 1 turn and increasing the duration of all poison debuffs by 1 turn. And then his A3, Unclean Banquet. This is on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance, booked of course, of placing 2 bomb debuffs on each target for 2 turns, then grants an extra turn. You then get to go into this and decrease the cooldown. That's why I think he is going to be the most important one out of all the bombers, besides maybe Commodus. Simply because he gets to basically instantly detonate the bombs on the enemies. Every time a bomb debuff placed by this champion detonates or is removed, places 2 poison debuffs for 2 turns. These debuffs are protected, and then has a ally attack in all battles by 30% aura. Not the best base attack at all, but I think overall he has the best room to be the best. Now, of course, there's obviously the argument that, hey, Marichka, her passive, she makes this a lot harder to do, but we'll get to that. And in what we've already done 8, 9, and 7. I'm at 8, 9, and 10. So number 7 is going to be a mythical champion, and that is going to be Gizmak. So Gizmak, the reason that I don't think he's the absolute best right now is because at the start of his turn, he's placing the HP burn. This HP burn can absolutely screw over yourself because this guy hits insanely hard, like as hard as Narcisse. But his issue is that he's just sheeping himself straight off the bat. But as long as he doesn't, he full buffs himself, you swap to his other side, and absolutely destroy with this Kaboom ability. It hits insanely hard. Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and read his kit for you guys real quick. It's just the mythics have so many things in their kit, and it's not all what I'm worried about when it comes to this, because some of these don't really matter. Magma Hurl attacks one enemy, increases the duration of all HP burn debuffs on the target by 1 turn. If the target is not under HP burn, decreases the duration of 2 random buffs on the enemy by 1 turn instead. These effects cannot be resisted if the attack is critical. That's something to keep in mind, is that if he has 100% crit rate, he cannot miss any of his debuffs. That's why this, like, you could say, oh, just building low accuracy. No, that doesn't matter. He's going to do it no matter what. And then Flames of Resentment on a 4-turn cooldown, 3-turn when booked, attacks all enemies before attacking, increases the duration of all HP burn debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn, and instantly activates any HP burn debuffs on that enemy, on each enemy. This effect cannot be resisted if this champion's crit rate is 100% or higher. And then finally, increases the duration of all debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn, places decreased speed on all enemies for 2 turns. This cannot be resisted. And I already read this off, but let me eat him. Let me add him. I keep saying these things. But on a 4-turn when booked, places increased crit damage, increased crit rate, and increased speed buff on all allies for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn. Do keep in mind that if you don't already have the 100% crit rate, you're not going to be getting all of these things guaranteed, and the buff isn't really as important at that point. Has a 27% ally crit rate aura, and then his transform. Then on his second form, his A1 Totemic Vengeance attacks one enemy one time if this champion's HP or the initial target's HP is equal to or lower than 50%, attacks all enemies instead, which is a very, very strong ability, something kind of like a big one on his A1. Increases the duration of all of 2 random debuffs on the target by 1 turn. If attacking all enemies, increases the duration of 2 random debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn instead. This effect cannot be resisted if this attack is critical. His damage is based on HP and defense on this side. This Kaboom attacks all enemies before attacking, places decreased defense debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be resisted if the target is under HP burn, places an extra hit on enemies under HP burn debuffs, grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. So you can see right there, he has to put out 2 debuffs, basically. I mean, if they have block debuffs, obviously, he can't put them up. But if it's just a blank slate, he has so many chances at getting sheeped, and it's just pretty rough for him. And then his Ungodly Fury, I think I forgot to mention, this books down to a 3-turn cooldown, and then his Ungodly Fury, a 4-turn, books down to 3, places a Pain Link debuff on the target for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be removed, resisted, or blocked. When calculating the damage inflicted by Pain Link debuff, 75% of the attacker's skill multiplier is reflected. The damage inflicted by Pain Link debuff will ignore 100% of the target's defense. Also places Taunt buff and an Unkillable buff on the champion for 2 turns. Finally places Ally Protect buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. Then he has his form swap, and then on his passive, will ignore 15% of the target's defense if this champion's HP or the target's HP is equal to or greater than 50%. If this champion's HP or the target's HP is less than 50%, will ignore 25% of the target's defense instead. Will also ignore block damage and shields when attacking enemies under HP burn debuffs. Inflicts 20% more damage to enemies not under an HP burn debuff. So this kind of just ignores Riechka's passive, which is pretty awesome. Makes him even stronger than he already was. And overall, I think he's absolutely phenomenal already, but this set will just make him better. Then we have an OG champion, my 3rd legendary ever. Somebody who I have wished was in the meta for a while, but hasn't been, and that is Kymar. So Prince Kymar, he is a magic legendary support-based demon spawn. I haven't been reading off all that stuff with the other champions, so it's whatever. But on his A1, attacks all enemies, places a 5% poison debuff if this attack is critical. Attacks all enemies, removes all buffs, places a sleep buff for 1 turn. This is on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. And then Seal of Magic. Well, this is called Abyssal Gaze. Forgot to read that off. Anyways, Seal of Magic is a 3 on a 6-turn cooldown. When booked, resets the cooldowns of all ally skills, fills the turn meter of all allies except this champion by 20%, and then he has a 30% arena speed aura. So, he's been destroyed by sheep. You haven't been able to use him for a while now because you just get sheep constantly, but I think Accuracy Kymar is going to come back into the meta, and he's going to be amazing with everything that's changing. And I think there's going to be honestly, I think there's going to be a lot less stone skin moving into this, which kind of makes bombs still kind of iffy. I get that, and that's why they're at the bottom of this list. But as long as there's less stone skin, he's going to be getting to remove all their buffs and placing a sleep debuff on the enemies. Now, champions are going to be running probably a lot of intercept, so the sleep isn't really what matters. It's the buff removal, and then you're getting to reset the cooldown of your ally skills. You also get to do the ally speed and read battles by 30%. Overall, a fantastic champion, one I could see being used a lot more once you get to use intercept on yourself. Then in number 5, we're heading towards the top 5 now, we have a champion that absolutely destroys everything in Arena right now. Probably one of the strongest, I'd say top 5 strongest champions in the game already, but it's only going to get better with this with this set coming into the game, and that is Crixia. So Crixia, she's Spirit Affinity Mythical in Knight's Revenant. Her A1 on her first form attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 50% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. A pretty insane A1, similar to Vizier. Then we have a 3-turn when booked Doom Lantern on the A2, places 50% decrease resistance debuff and a block buffs debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, also decreases each target's turn meter by 20%. A phenomenal ability, usable everywhere in the game basically. And then her A3, this is the ability that is disgusting. What makes her one of the strongest in the game. On a 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, removes all buffs from all enemies, and then also increases the cooldown of all enemies' skills by 3 turns. The buff removal is what makes her so hard to use at the moment, and the fact that she can just get sheeped, unlike Warlord or Yumiko. But once you put Intercept buff on her, it doesn't really matter. She can't get sheeped by using this ability and just becomes that much stronger, that much more oppressive. Then obviously you have the Metamorph. Immune to stun debuffs on Shadow Vigil, the passive, increases this champion's accuracy by 1 for every 2 resistance they have. It's an insane passive, so incredibly strong, and then increases ally resistance in all battles by 80. Then on her second form, this form won't really get touched by intercepts, like it doesn't really matter. It's still nice to have. It's a great form, just saying. When I'm talking about the intercept, I'm not saying that'll really buff this side all that much. Blade Wing attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 60% chance when booked of decreasing the duration of all debuffs on a random ally by 1 turn. Reign of Damnation. On a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, places block debuffs buff and increase resistance on all allies for 2 turns, then fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Just another great ability. Night Purge, another one of the strongest abilities in the game. On a 5-turn cooldown when booked, removes all debuffs from all allies, then it decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion by 3 turns. What an insane ability. Then obviously Metamorph, and then Immune to Sleep increases this champion's speed by 1 for every 10 resistance they have. Stacks up to 50, so you can... yeah, okay, so it's saying you can get 50 extra speed off of her resistance, which is insane. All you need is 500 resistance, which is not something hard to get. Her base stats are phenomenal. Overall, in my opinion, the 3rd best champion in all of Raid Shadow Legends. Then number 4, we have, oh man, the free mythical, quote-unquote free, he's very hard to get, Carnage. So right now, if you look at Carnage's reviews, everybody's saying that he's bad. He's not bad. He's an amazing champion. I think these are a bit ridiculous for ratings. I don't know why he's rated so low, but I do know when putting Intercept on him, he's going to become way stronger. So, on his A1 on his first form, we have Suffer Slash, attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 50% chance of removing a random buff from the target. That's already a chance to get sheeped. Then the passive on this, whenever an enemy hits this champion or an ally, has a 50% chance to counterattack with this skill. The chance increases by 10% for each debuff on the enemy. Damage is based on attack and accuracy. So Yeah, he's just a freaking sheep magnet with even his A1. Starting at his A1, you're just looking at getting sheeped constantly. On his A2, Devilish Accord books down to a 3-turn cooldown. Before attacking, swaps HP with an enemy, then steals all buffs from them, also transferring all debuffs from this champion to the target and places a seal debuff. Seal debuff basically says, hey, you have Savage, now you don't. You no longer get anything from your Savage. That also means, if I'm reading this correctly, you should be able to kind of take away their intercept, which would make this champion even stronger than I'm already thinking he is. He could easily be a top. He could be number one gaining from this, and I think that is a fair argument. And maybe I put him too low down. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think there's a very fair argument for him to be number one most gained from this update. And then on his A3, Trinity of Pain level, well, I don't have to say level 1, whatever. On a 3-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy 3 times. The first hit places oh my gosh, places a block passive skills debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be removed. The second hit places a blocked active skills for 2 buffs. For 2 turns. This debuff cannot be removed. The third hit steals 100% of the target's turn meter. Yeah, you're just locking down a champion and begging to be sheeped. You then have the Metamorph, and then each hit this champion deals from skills has a 50% chance of applying a debuff spread effect, taking one random debuff from the target and placing it on all enemies. Whenever this champion kills an enemy, has a 100% chance of applying debuff spread, taking all debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. This effect cannot be resisted. So it's kind of weird how he works. You have a lot of, hey, this cannot be resisted, but then you also have, hey, you need accuracy. And I think what this comes down to is, hey, I'm attacking the nuker, I'm placing these debuffs, and then I'm spreading them to everybody unresistible afterwards, which means you can pass all accuracy checks needed for, let's say, like an Ancora that's built very high resistance. Then we have the aura, increases all speed in arena battles by 33%. I believe that is the highest arena speed aura in the game. And then we have his second form. This one has the highest base attack in all of Raid, almost 2,000, which is absolutely disgusting. On the A1, Demon Stinger, level 1, attacks one enemy 2 times, heals this champion by 20% of the damage inflicted. Passive effect, whenever an enemy hits this champion or an ally, it's basically the same passive, it's just going to be counter-attacking, increases by 10% for each debuff on the enemy. Damage based on attack and accuracy. His books are very worth it. You're getting 30% damage. It's very strong. Then his A2, on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, Singularity of Pain attacks all enemies, will ignore shield buffs, will also ignore ally protection buffs when attacking enemies under 1 or more debuffs, and unkillable buffs when attacking enemies under 2 or more debuffs. Now, really, this isn't that strong of an ability, in my opinion. I don't see a world where this is all that useful. It's just kind of mid. Like, sure, you could use it against Gizmak, and shields don't really matter anymore. We have Narcies, so this one's just kind of meh. I wouldn't really use it all that much unless I'm just trying to finish off an enemy team with a simple AoE. And then Infernal Stars, with a 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies 2 times. If the target is killed by this skill while under 3 or more different debuffs, places a block revive on them. Also heals this champion by 30% of the damage dealt. This is a very strong ability when paired with the right team. This block revive, I believe, should be 1 or more, honestly. He's a free mythical. Everybody hopefully will eventually get him. Could be a very long time for some people, but regardless, I think it should be 1 or 2. I still think it's a strong, I still think he's a very strong champion. I just think that they could change a couple things to make him that much more stronger and that much more meta. Then we have Metamorph, and then Unending Carnage, level 1. I don't know why I say level 1, whatever. This champion's crit damage increases by 1% for every 3 points of accuracy they have, ignores 10% of the target's defense for each debuff they're under. This makes him way stronger than the rest of his kit reads. This makes him a lot more viable for having those debuffs out there, because a lot of the times you don't have room for debuffs, so when you're increasing his damage by that much, bringing some debuffs is really worth it. Yes, he brings them on his first form, and what you could say to do, you do this, you kill the go ahead and kill the nuker on their team, you spread these debuffs, and then you go to this form and absolutely nuke with this block revive, assuming they have one more debuff than what you had already placed with this champion. And then we have the 33% arena speed, and yeah, amazing base stats overall. Fantastic champion that would just be made one. Looking back on it now, I think it is fair to say that he could easily be number 1 on this list. Now we have our honorable mentions. Our honorable mentions are going to start with Hegemon. So Hegemon for a very long time now has been useless. Nobody uses him. But with the change of they're going to be a lot less stone skin, well, hopefully, we're probably going to see a lot of intercept plus 1 turn stone skin, but there's going to be a lot of champions with no stone skin, a lot of the debuffers I've mentioned, the bomb champions. We're probably just going to see very fast, high accuracy builds with intercept. That's just my opinion, that's what I'm assuming, but I do think that Hegemon, Void Legendary, and Knight's Rev is going to be a lot more useful. On his A1, attacks 1 enemy. Each hit has a, why am I tripping out here? A 55% chance of placing decreased debuff for 2 turns on, it's attacking 2 times at random, so it can hit really anybody. Then we have the A2, the only other ability, Crippling Cold. On a 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, places a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, also has a 50% chance of placing block active skills for 2 turns. Overall, you're reading this, it's not that strong, it's pretty basic, until you get to his passive, always goes first each round. Now if there's multiple Hegemons, it's whoever's Hegemon's speed is the fastest, but regardless, I do think that with this, we could see some more Hegemon play in LiveArena and stuff, just because people are going to be running very fast champions, maybe not in Stone Skin, and I think there's a chance he comes back into the meta, which he's been locked out of for a very long time now. Next up is going to be Tormin. So Tormin is an insanely strong champion, one of the best crowd control champions ever to see raid. Void Legendary, defense-based dwarf. He was a fusion a very long time ago, and not too long ago was just a free champion that if you did, I believe it was like not a Deck of Fate, but something similar, you would have gotten him. But on his A1, Rhymefire attacks all enemies, has a 15% chance of placing a freeze, books up to a 25, instantly activates the skill whenever an enemy under both a freeze and HP burn debuff takes damage from the HP burn. This is amazing for like Doom Tower and stuff. He can completely destroy a wave with, let's say, Drexlar, just a free HP burner everybody gets, or Artak, or whoever. They can pair together and just, the other wave would never take a turn. Then his Iceberg crashes A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. When booked, removes all buffs from a target enemy, then attacks the target for 2 times, steals all buffs instead if the target is under a freeze debuff, will ignore defense if the target is under both freeze and HP burn debuffs. His A3 Blizzard Rage on a 4-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies, places a block buffs debuff, a 100% heal reduction for 2 turns on enemies under freeze. has a 60% chance of placing Provoke, books up to 80 for 1 turn on enemies not under freeze, decreases the cooldown of all not I am stuttering so much. Decreases the cooldown of 1 random skill of each ally by 1 turn every time an enemy attacks under both freeze and HP burn. And in his passive, what makes him so incredibly strong, the rest of his kit's strong, but this makes him that much better. Wintry Wind on a books down to a 6-turn cooldown. His passive is what matters. His active is really nice too. But the passive effect has a 20% chance, books up to a 30 chance of placing a freeze debuff on the enemy each time they receive a buff or have their turn meter filled. The 20% chance applies up to 2 times per enemy turn, once for buffs and once for turn meter, in cases where an enemy receives multiple of these effects at the same time. There is no real cooldown on this besides the one up to twice per enemy turn. Does not work with effects from artifact sets, turn meter filling, effects from masteries healing, or those buffs or effects that take place at the end, at the start of a round. Apologies. And then his active revives this champion with 100% of the champion's HP when killed and places a freeze debuff on the champion for 1 turn. That's what's on the 6-turn cooldown. But yeah, so when you're using Arbiter or something and they have, let's say, Armand's, well, actually Armand's is a great one. When they use his turn meter steal and whatever, that counts as increasing his turn meter, so you have a chance to freeze him. As long as the Armand's isn't under any stone skin, whenever they steal that turn meter, get that increased turn meter, and then get freezed and get screwed over. And you do have a chance of getting sheeped because everybody is a 5-star sheep on Armand's, at least it feels like it, and you just kind of get screwed over with Torment. But with the intercept buff coming to set in Pinpoint, I do think he'll be a lot better. He also has 94 base speed, which is pretty crappy, and I think that's the worst part of his kit, as well as his base defense being a little bit low. And then my number 1 honorable mention is another classic champion, and that's going to be Madame Ceres. So Madame Ceres was insane for a super long time. She even got nerfed. This used to be on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. It's now on a 4. They nerfed her because she was so incredibly strong. But yeah, so Madame Ceres is a Void Epic support inside of the Dark Elves faction. Her A1 Panic Spread attacks one enemy, has a 20% chance of placing Fear debuff for 1 turn, increases the 30% chance if the target is under 1 debuff, increases the 45% chance if they're under 2 or more. Then her A2 Tricks and Treats on a 3-turn when booked, attacks all enemies, has a 50% when booked chance of stealing 1 random buff from each target. Places a block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns if any buff is stolen. Places a True Fear for 1 turn on enemies who have buffs stolen. So actually a pretty strong ability here, not when you really think about when you're talking about Madame Ceres, but it's definitely strong and definitely worth using. Getting to crowd control them and put block debuffs on yourself is really solid. Her A3, what makes her so strong, is Midnight Ritual. Like I said, used to be on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, now on a 4. Removes all buffs from all enemies, places a 50% decrease attack and decrease defense debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. For an epic, that is amazing. That's better than some legendary buff strips. That's top tier and something that I'm going to be excited to see being utilized a bit more. I think Pinpoint set on her is going to be the best set available. Throw her in 9-piece and she should be solid. And then her passive, Witch's Grace, places a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. When attacked while under a shield buff, has a 35% chance of placing a fear I do think that this shield can get her killed really easily with Narcisse and Carnage and stuff out there. Now, Narcisse specifically because he hits twice if you have it, but it is what it is. I mean, if you're running her and only pinpoint set, you probably are going first anyways, and it doesn't matter. Now finally, my voice is dying, and we are headed towards the top 3. Wait, did I do this right? What? Did I skip a number, guys? I think I did. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, okay. So I guess it's 11 champions, but that doesn't matter, does it? Yeah, I guess we're throwing one more in here. I guess as an honorable mention, maybe not. We'll put him at 3.5, I suppose. Galathier. I'm not going to read through all of his kit. He's like the best champion in the game, second best champion in the game. He's just doing a lot of supporting on this side. Then on this side, he has a Eclipse Rend. Before attacking, he removes all buffs from all enemies and places blocks active skills. His A1 doesn't really do too much if you're using him to try to avoid sheep. This will get you sheeped pretty hard on Galathier. You're placing decreased resistance and stuns on everybody. Yeah, I mean, Galathier, absolutely insane champion. Everybody should know what he does. If not, go read into it, because you will run into him. And I think he is... he's just going to become even stronger. I guess I just forgot to put a number by his name. But yeah, I mean, Galathier's Galathier. I don't even want to talk about him. I want to pull him. He's insane. But to our actual top 3 now, I suppose. At number 3, we have Marius. So Marius is a free legendary defense-based damage void champion in the Skinwalkers. His A1 Auric Lance attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing Enfeeble for 1 turn. Death or Glory on a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies 3 times. Each hit decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. I don't know for sure if this counts as a form of buff strip. It should. I'm not sure how that works in the coding. I don't know if he gets sheeped by this or not, but I do think his passive, I mean, his A1 makes it hard for him to not get sheep sometimes. And yes, Enfeeble is probably the best debuff in the entire game. It just makes him kind of hard to use when going against people like the Taras and stuff, where a lot of people have 6-star sheep on him right now. And getting even 1 turn, 1 stack of intercept would be amazing. His A3 Galloping Thunder places 50% increased attack buff and 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 3 turns. Then places a stun debuff on the enemy with the highest turn meter. That can go ahead and get you sheeped right there. And finally grants an extra turn. It's on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Once you take that extra turn, it'll then be a 3. His passive, this champion is immune to turn meter reduction effects and decreased speed debuffs. So he counters our mons pretty well, which is awesome, but he's not immune to sheep. Whenever an enemy changes form or attempts to decrease this champion's turn meter, counterattacks using the default skill. His default skill places Enfeeble, so he just has a lot of chances of getting sheeped. He's already insane top tier in LiveArena and Arena in general, but as soon as he can get 1 or multiple stacks of intercept, I think he's only going to get better. He's just going to go from like top 10 to top 3, maybe not top 3, but you guys get what I'm saying. The power surge is going to be tremendous for this guy. Aura, 35% defense in all battles, pretty insane. Amazing base stats. Overall, a top tier champion. In my opinion, probably top 10 in all of Raid. Fantastic PvE and PvP. At number 2, we have the champion that everybody hates, and I think we're all going to hate him that much more moving into this, and that is Armand's. So Armand's is a pretty recent fusion that has completely changed Raid. All of the arena, LiveArena, he has like a 100% play rate. It's pretty crazy. He's insane, in my opinion, the best fusion ever, besides maybe Newt. But I still think he's had more impact than Newt did, obviously in PvP at least, and also in waves. He's insane. Magic, support, Barbarian. Yeah. So on his AM1, he has, I don't know if that'd be Weird or Word. I'm just going to call it Weird Blade. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random active skill by 2 turns. Fills this champion's turn meter by 10% for each turn added to the cooldown. Then his A2, one of the strongest abilities in the game, attacks all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown, steals the turn meter of all steals all the turn meter of each target except enemies under sheep. Also places stun for 1 turn on all enemies not under sheep. So as you can see, he's going to be putting out a lot of debuffs through the stun here, so a lot of chances to get sheeped. But this is a 3-turn. It's basically a 2-turn because you're stealing all the turn meter. It's insane. And then on the A3 for my next trick on a 3-turn cooldown. Do keep in mind you're just going to be cycling like crazy. So yeah, this says 3, but you don't even notice it. Yeah, Blicks down to 3, places a sheep debuff on an enemy for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be blocked. It can't be blocked by anything. Unless the champion's immune to sheep, you're not going to be blocking it with buffs, you're not going to be blocking it with stone skin. Nothing. I do believe Intercept will take this. I could be wrong about that simply because it says this cannot be blocked, but I think Intercept will go ahead and take that and will make Armand's not as oppressive, but at the same time, on the same side of the coin here, well, not same side, the other side of the same coin here, we're just going to be looking at him getting even stronger against champions who don't have Intercept. So yeah, he places the sheep, then has a 75% chance, 100% chance when booked, of removing all buffs from all enemies. Fills this champion's turn meter by 5% for each buff removed. Yeah, I mean, what an insane kit. And he's only going to get stronger with, less champions using Stone Skin, because this ability then becomes stronger. If they are using Stone Skin, he's still going to be removing the Stone Skin. He's still going to be placing the sheep. Yeah, I mean, AoE 100% turn meter steal. That's still going to be strong no matter if they have Intercept or not. It's just crazy. And then on his passive, whenever a sheep debuff is removed or expired on an enemy, increases the cooldown of a random active skill on that enemy to its max. So let's say you have your Kymor that you're running. If he sheeps the Kymor, then turns, and then as he's turning back, he gets his reset, like his full turn on all. Sorry, what's the name of it? If you're facing the Kymor, he gets sheeped. He gets this fully reset. That's 6 turns. You'll never get to see that again, and that is so insanely strong. And then he has a 20% ally speed in arena. He has insane base stats at 108 speed, okay HP, okay defense, okay accuracy. I think his speed is just what makes it pretty insane considering the rest of his kit. And then finally, the champion I think that will gain the most from this set, and the champion I'm most excited to use, is Ramontu. Ramontu is a phenomenal champion, but now with this change, with him getting to have intercept buffs on himself, will make him, in my opinion, a maybe top 5 pick in arena. Let's go ahead and check out his kit. Voided, Legendary, and Lizardman attack based. He's free, which makes him even more amazing because a lot more people get to use him. On Psychic Overload attacks, one enemy has a 75% chance of increasing the cooldown of one target skill at a random by one turn, has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff on the target from one turn if a skill has its cooldown increased to the max. And if the cooldown increase is successful, will also decrease a cooldown of a skill on a random ally by one turn, with the highest turn meter and a skill on cooldown. So this book's from a 75 to 100% chance of increasing the cooldown. On his A2, all of these will go from 75 to 100%. So it attacks one enemy 4 times, 100% chance of placing decreased defense, weaken, decreased speed, and block buffs. These are all in the consecutive hits, so it'll go 1 decreased speed, 2 weaken, 1 decreased defense, 2 weaken, 3 decreased speed, and then 4 block buffs. Also has a 100% chance of placing True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn if the target has 4 or more debuffs after the attack. And then the ability that just takes him from amazing to absolute god tier in this is going to be his Blood's Wings. On a 3-turn cooldown, when booked, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of removing all buffs. Also has a 100% chance of placing block active skills for 2 turns on enemies without passives. It also has an 80% chance of placing a block passive skills debuff for 2 turns on enemies with passive skills. This is insane. This ability right here, blocking all passives, AoE, buff removal. Now that you can make it to where he can't get sheeped, he's being used. He is being used constantly. All of these defenses you see in current Platinum Arena, if I go look at the top tier, let's see right here. We block the passive off of the Siegfried. We can't get sheeped by the Armands. So we just go ahead and say, hey, forget all that. We're turning off your passives. We're one-shotting you. We're calling it a day. Same thing here. 6-star sheep, 6-star sheep, 6-star sheep, 6-star sheep. That's some bullcrap. But as soon as you see that, you're like, oh yeah, my Interceptor Monsu says, hey, I don't care about your sheep. I also don't care about your passives. So you, Crixia, who has a crap ton of resistance, let's say, as long as you pass the resistance check, which is pretty hard against the Crixia. I don't imagine you'll do it all that often. But in the case that you do, you say, hey, now you don't have that much resistance or speed or whatever. And Cora, well, you can't take that debuff for Narcisse anymore, so you're going to get crowd controlled. Narcisse is going to get crowd controlled. And then Galathier, hey, you can't just not die. You're going to die now, which is awesome. Marichka's, she can't revive everybody now. Taras, he can't take no damage from anything. I mean, blocking these champions' passives changes everything. It takes Harima from being god tier to, okay, I mean, sure, she's a good nuker. Without her passive, she's not that impressive. Yeah, I mean, there's 1,000 different cases of this being important, but I think it is only fair to say that Ramatsu, who I currently have in Supersonic, will go into Supersonic and Intercept, and Pinpoint, or I'll probably go full Pinpoint. I don't know. I'm still trying to decide, but I think Ramatsu goes from not used to one of the most used arena champions in all of the game. And yeah, that's my list, guys. I know this was a very long video. It's mainly because I went in and read all the kits and tried to explain my best as to why I think they deserve to be placed where they were. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you've stuck around this long, consider subscribing, liking. I really do appreciate all support that I get on any of my videos. It really does mean the world. I'm going to be trying to do more and more amazing videos for you guys, putting the work in to get them out as frequent as possible. With life getting busier and busier, it can get hard, but I'll do my best. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, guys.